Hey everybody, I'm Deborah Richmond. The quilt behind me I call Star Within a Star, and that is because, obviously, it is a large star in the middle, and it is made up of smaller stars. You'll see them here in the white background, and you will also see them here within the body of the star itself, that these pieces are also this same star, replicated. So I wanted to take the opportunity to show you just very simply how do you make one of these freeform stars. Now they're called several things. I first saw this particular technique several years ago with Gwen Marston from Michigan. She is someone who I saw do this first, and I know other people have done it over the years. This is a particular type of pattern I absolutely love because you really don't need a pattern to do it, and that's one of my favorite types of quilting. It's very spontaneous and freeform. This is also a great way to use up small scraps, and that's always something high on my list, is a way to use up those scraps and do it into a very beautiful quilt. So let me show you how this is done. You start with simply some squares. You decide how large do you want your star block to be. So I'm going to be using 3-inch squares just to show you first. So these are 9 squares. It is a 9 patch. So then you can see by starting with 9-inch squares, I'm going to have a pretty good size block. The size of the star simply depends on the size of the squares you start with for the 9 patch. So you can adjust this to whatever size you like. These are actually smaller. I believe these are probably 2-inch squares that I used in these, but we're going to show you with 3. So you're going to pick up one of the pieces from your block, and let's say we're going to start with this first one at the bottom. Right now it's just a white square. This is where we start using our blue scraps to create the particular piece. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this white background square, and we are going to sew the first leg of the star. So if you're going to be looking at the pattern, this is the piece we're going to be creating right now. So right now I'm laying down a piece of blue fabric that is going to be this particular leg of this star. So all I'm going to do is I've got my white square. I'm going to take a piece of scrap blue that you see here, and I'm going to lay this down, and I'm going to try it out, and I'm going to see that when I sew this here, is it going to cover this corner of my square? That's what I want it to happen. So I always lay it down first, take a look, flip it over. Is it going to cover? If yes, I go ahead and I sew right along that line, which I have already done. And then I'm going to flip this over, and then I'm going to press it, which I've already done. Now the next step is I'm going to take this particular piece, and I am now going to flip it over, and I'm going to square it up. So I'm going to cut off the excess blue that we do not need, and I'm going to use the edges of the white background as my template, as my guide. I can also remeasure it too, so let's just make sure we do that. Again, I want it to be the 3 inches square, just like we started with. So now you can see that since I have now cut off the excess, you can now see that leg of the triangle is showing on this particular square, just like we want it, right there on that side. Now it's time for us to create the other side of this particular star leg. And so we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to show you with this sample. So you see the piece we already have on one side. We're going to take another piece of fabric, and we're going to lay it down on our background, flip it over to make sure it's going to cover that corner, and when I see that yes, that is going to be a good placement, you go ahead and sew, which I've already done. Once you've sewn that piece, you can now take it to the ironing board and you can press it, which I have already done again. And now I'm going to do the same thing as far as cutting off the extra excess blue color, blue fabric, and square up again to the 3 inches. Okay, so once I have cut off that extra, when we flip it over, you can now see the top portion of the star. We have both triangles right where we want them. They're not exactly the same, and that's okay. A variation in the different blue pieces is what we want, so we give it that nice, spontaneous, organic look. So we're going to repeat the same process for each step right here. And then when we have those 4 pieces, now we can lay our block back out again with our white background. And so now you can see our star has formed by our 4 pieces that we've created. Again, this is one of my favorite patterns. I've done dozens and dozens, probably hundreds of these stars in different sizes over the years because I love it so much. It's a great way to use up different scrap fabrics. It's a great way to get a nice pretty star without using a pattern, and it's a great way to be able to very easily draft a star if you need a star anywhere in any quilt that you're doing. Very easy to get one that exactly the size that you want, simply by varying the sizes of your 9-patch background pieces. And so then you can see by looking at the quilt again, I've simply taken that exact same pattern, done it several times in this quilt. This is a great quilt for large stars, for all different types of a modern look. It's good for baby quilts, children's quilts. Children love stars, especially if you use nice bright colors. Lots of different ways you can use this pattern in your own quilting and make it your own. Thanks for joining me.
And be sure to subscribe to our channel. You can do so here by clicking the subscribe button. That way you'll find out about new videos as they become available.
Hey everybody, this is Deborah Richmond. I want to show you, while I have the quilt blah blah blah,